Hello, everyone. Ryan Rodriguez back on another episode of Cal Maritime's Career Services Connecting Keelhaulers show. In this episode, we are introducing a new interview topic as we speak to some of our recruiters from our employer partners. Today, we are joined by two reps from BAE Systems, Madeline Wren and Casey Tu, both talent acquisition specialists. Ladies, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedules to speak with us today. So,
absolutely, happy to be here.
Of course. So before we jump in, and Casey, I'll have you answer first, and then we'll go to Madeline. What levels do you recruit for, and what type of roles are you recruiting for?
Yeah, so I recruit for our entry-level positions, and that can be a regular entry-level role that folks are looking at, first-time career, as well as any of our program positions. So for our ship repair sites, we have an apprenticeship program for skilled trades folks. We also have leadership development programs. They're still entry level, but it's an opportunity to get a large breadth of experience in a 3-year rotational program.
And Madeline, what about you?
All right. I recruit for all of our interns and co-ops within our platforms and services sector, and that includes any department or function, whether it be engineering, finance, accounting. They all fall under me, and I additionally help with some of our trade outreach.
Awesome. And that's one thing we try and educate our cadets on is like people have different roles within recruiting. So someone just for internships, someone for new grads and stuff. So definitely good information for them. So first kind of question about BAE recruiting and stuff, starting with resumes. That's what everyone's always thinking about. Either one of you can answer it. How for BAE should resumes be formatted? Are there specific things or like order of things on the resume you're looking for? And we do in our office see from time to time the like software generated templates through Word or Google and stuff. And how does BAE feel about those? And are those difficult to read like through an ATS?
Great question. Casey, I can start, and then I'm sure you'll have great things to add to from your perspective. For the internships, or at least the resumes that I'm reviewing, I'll start with all of our resumes get reviewed by real people. So we don't use a software to review the resumes. And therefore, if they have some templates that they use, that's totally fine. We encourage, whatever resume form that they're comfortable with to use. In terms of what to put on the resume, there's no specific formula, right? Because every position is going to be a little bit different. But what I would highly recommend, and some things that we look for, are those leadership experience opportunities. So whether you have a category that's titled leadership experience or leadership in volunteering, some area to show, especially as a student, your involvement in that area is definitely something we look for. In addition to any skills that we have on the job description themselves. So under required skills, we do look for all of those matching criteria when we're reviewing the resume. And I would also encourage students to look at our preferred skills. So if there's anything in preferred that they don't have, we don't require it, of course, it's only preferred, but we do look to see if that's on your resume as well. And so that's another area where they could look and see how they might have those skills from different clubs they're participating in or volunteering, and sort of format that on their resume.
And I would add to that, that's applicable for any level of position you're applying to at BAE Systems, that you can also change your resume, update your resume based on the job you're applying to. So there may be different requirements for a different position, and I would just make sure you're focusing on what that specific position is looking for and making sure that's on your resume. You can also include a cover letter. Those won't be required for a majority of our positions. A few will state that in the job description that it is required, but if you add it as a non-required document, it's just going to set you above the other candidates, shows that you've put a little extra effort in there, you've done some research into the company or the position, and shows your true interest.
Nice. So I was going to get to cover letters a little bit later, but since you brought it up and you guys don't necessarily require them, what would be kind of specific things within a cover letter that would be good, that would maybe be different than what someone would include in a resume?
I think it's important to show that you've done a little bit of research on the company you're interested in. so that you're really truly wanting to join this company. Not that you're just reiterating what's on your resume. So you want to tell your story, show your personality there, maybe share some things that are less work or project related. Just kind of take that chance to shine for yourself. Think of it as the pre-interview conversation.
Absolutely. And one more thing I would add to that as well, if you don't have room for a project on your resume and you've done some research on the company and there's a project that you've worked on that's related to something that we do, that would be a great place to include that and explain a little bit more about it and why you're interested.
Gotcha. So, and Casey, this one will be a little bit more for you. And you kind of already touched on it with what you recruit for, but like, what are kind of those, I guess, specific positions that new grads would kind of be drawn towards in BAE? I know like ship superintendent is one that our cadets look towards. You mentioned the leadership development program, so just talk a little bit more about some of those positions.
Yeah, well, the short answer is there's limitless options. So we are a very large defense contractor, and there's a lot of different functions that go into getting that end product there. So you can really dive into anything you're interested in, but we do have some of your cadets that have converted from internships into regular roles on the supply chain side, in the business side of the house, as well as the ship superintendent positions. I would say a majority are on the more waterfront side. But it really, if your interest is in figuring out the operations of a shipyard, there's chances for career paths there too.
Cool. And then, so Madeline, we'll start with you on this one. With those internships, and you mentioned leadership skills as one of them, but just like overall experiences and skills within a resume that do stand out, and even like how to almost like kind of word them to make sure that they're getting the point across that the student wants to when a reviewer is reading their resume.
Yeah, great question. For internships specifically, and I know we touched on the ship superintendent, but we do have a similar shipyard management internship that I know a lot of the Cal Maritime students have participated in. And in that example, there is some skills that they specifically look for that might be, modeling software or just some key notes on your resume that show experience in something related to ships. So if you have, naval architecture classes and potentially not a lot of internship experience, don't be afraid to put some of your relevant classes on your resume, because we do want to know what you're learning. And we do really encourage students to bring those ideas from the classroom to our shipyards and any location for that matter. So we do really enjoy intern and student perspectives, and that would be a way to show some of your knowledge. Additionally, any communication skills that you can put on there, that is probably the most important transferable skill within our company, since we are such a large group. And even at just one of our shipyards, there's thousands of employees, over 1,000. And so being able to talk to directors and your peers and other dock masters or managers in the shipyard, you'll be exposed to all levels of employees here at BAE Systems. And so it's important to showcase that on your resume as well.
Nice. And for Casey, and I think maybe the leadership development program, because I know we haven't had as many alums kind of looking into that. Beyond, obviously the Corps of Cadets here is an easy go-to and being in charge of a division and stuff. But what other maybe leadership things while they have been in college would kind of stand out on a resume for that?
Great question. And I actually would start by saying you don't have to think of the traditional leadership roles. So your title might not be the leader of something, but think of what's transferable with what you're working with. So if you volunteer in the community, if you have a job off campus, or even a position on campus that isn't in charge of other folks, they're still getting transferable skills. So I think it's important to be able to figure out how you can communicate that and put that on your resume to get yourself into the interview, and then elaborate in the interview. Anytime you get exposure to different functions, so it might be a different major or different professors or anyone within the school, it's another chance to talk about your relationship with different people and having to work with different types of folks, and getting the project done. So yeah, I would focus on the transferable skills and less on getting that position with the official title.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that's definitely good to know. More ways to lead and get those skills for sure. For sure. So, and great, because we have a intern recruiter and we have a new grad recruiter. What would be some differences then on those two types of resumes that, you know, as maybe you're transitioning out of an intern role and now looking for more full-time positions? What would be some things that that students should be highlighting as now as they grow in their work experience and graduate college?
For the entry-level new grad positions, might be a little on the nose, but we're hoping that you've gotten some waterfront experience, at least if you're interested in our ship repair business. For the intern side, you might not need to have that experience to get the internship. We're happy to be the company that gives you that firsthand experience, but definitely doing something, whether it's a shadowing project, an internship, a long-term co-op, get the exposure. It doesn't have to be a ship superintendent internship. As long as you're getting some type of maritime exposure, you can then speak to a different area of it. Another thing would be that you are well-rounded in your activities. So you're doing more than just taking your classes and getting good grades. There's so much more to a person than what their textbook knowledge is. So we do want to see people that are involved with their campus or with their community.
Moving on a little bit more in that application process, I know supplementals are sometimes encouraged on those. So for both interns and new grads, are there supplementals that BAE looks for, whether it be letters of recommendation, transcripts, project descriptions, or things like that can help enhance the candidate's resume?
For interns specifically, we don't require any supplementals, and I don't believe there's actually a place to put them unless you were to send them directly to a recruiter. Besides that cover letter that Casey mentioned, that does make you stand out. And I would even mention too, for referrals or references, you don't have to put those on your resume. A lot of the times if we need references, we'll ask, but that way it opens it up more for students to put on those project experiences or volunteer experiences, and use that valuable real estate to emphasize some of the other work that they're doing.
Totally.
And I would add, sorry, Ryan.
No,
I'd add
good.
for those new grad positions, if there is a requirement for a specific certification, that'll be listed in our job description. Maddie touched on this a little earlier, but we do go off of those required skills, education, and experience. So it's really great if you're perusing our career site and reading different job descriptions, you'll start to get a feel for what we're looking for. And then as far as your official transcripts or a diploma, something like that, we wouldn't ask that until you actually got an offer of employment and we're doing your onboarding paperwork.
Gotcha. Cool. And Madeline, I like that you touched on not having references on the resume, because we still do see that. Sometimes it's like, you know, they'll ask for it or there'll be a special spot for it. So, but I know that's kind of a more old school way of doing things. So still, some old things never die, or they take forever.
Yeah, use that room for something more valuable.
Exactly. Totally. So now, and we get a lot of questions about this. So what is a typical for BAE application to interview to offer timeline? And kind of, Madeline, you can answer first kind of for the interns, and then Casey, you can answer for more of the full-time positions.
Yeah, that's a great question. For our internships, it does depend slightly on what season we're recruiting for. So typically we have 3 seasons, spring, summer, and fall, with summer being our biggest cohort. And with that, we do try to recruit 3 to 6 months in advance if we can. And so that's something that I would encourage interns, if they're interested, to always be on the lookout early and set up those job alerts so they can get those emails and be reviewed first. However, when it comes to application to offer to start date timeline, if you apply, it typically takes 2 to 4 weeks to get to that, completing your interview phase. And then from interviews, based on if they're first round interviews or second round, typically for our internships, the majority of them are only first round. Some do have second round interviews as well. So that of course would lengthen the timeline by a couple weeks there. However, after the interviews are completed, so we're at 6 weeks right now, the hiring team would then take a week or 2 to review all the candidates, and we would get an offer through to approvals. And once approved, we would be calling the candidates. So all of that to say, I would say the quickest timeline would be about 8 weeks. And again, you could be getting your offer within 8 weeks, but not starting for 6 more months if we're recruiting that early in advance. So there is a little bit of a lag there, but we're really trying to be proactive in bringing in the best students.
And then for those new grad positions, what Maddie's timeline with the 8 weeks, that could be a typical entry-level role. But if someone was applying for the leadership development positions, for example, we recruit for those about 6 to 8 months in advance. So the recs open up sometime in August. We go through the interview process. We're actually just now in the offer extending process, but the folks that are joining the cohort won't actually begin until June. And we do that to give folks that are seniors right now that chance to complete their degree. So another example could be an entry-level position that's not part of a program. We could post it in January, but if we find someone that is a senior and that's the person we want to bring on, the hiring team may be willing to wait, and they would have to wait until that person officially graduates, which would then drag it out. But other than that, if it's just a regular role, it'd be the same kind of timeline as our internships. 8 weeks, so 2 to 3 months or so is pretty typical. I'd say the regular positions do tend to have second interviews more than our internships, which leads to the 3-month mark a little bit more.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, no, we're still trying to hammer home to seniors, like you can start applying now, or like you said, even in January, and let the company be the one to decide if they don't want to wait that long, as opposed to screening out, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then after a candidate or a student applies, what should they be doing? Because we get a lot of questions, and I know this is I want them to hear it from you guys as opposed to us. Like, what should they be doing as they wait and they got all this anxiety and I want this job and they haven't gotten back to me? What should they be doing in that time?
I would recommend the most important thing is to remember your login info. So there's a candidate zone, and you can go into that candidate zone. It'll show you every single application or job that you applied to. It'll give you a status. So it'll say pending review or interview requested. And of course, you'll hear from us when we request an interview, but just in case you want to check on other applications, you can log into your candidate zone and it'll show you all of that there. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Bookmark that site, check it as often as you want. Another thing I would recommend is going to LinkedIn, and if you have the recruiter's info, feel free to connect and shoot them a message. Otherwise, I would also recommend following the actual BAE Systems Inc. company on our LinkedIn page. There's a lot of great articles that get posted about contracts we win, awards that we've gotten, any updates on just life at a shipyard or info sessions that we're hosting. There's a lot going on. And so while they wait, I would highly recommend looking into some of that. And that way they can improve their business acumen of the company and have, hopefully, once they get their interview, some more things to talk about as well.
And I would add to that, like Maddie said, you can always check your status on your candidate portal. But if you have a question about what a status means, you can reach out to that recruiter and just touch base with them. There's a polite way to go about it. We're all people and want updates. And at BAE Systems, we do strive to make sure all candidates have an update, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Nice. Yeah, I know. And the limbo ones, I know for applying jobs myself, those are always the worst, for sure. So definitely appreciate that. And students do say good things about how you guys go through that process. So definitely appreciate that. And Madeline, you just mentioned one thing I just kind of wanted to touch on. What else can the cadets be doing while they're in college to make sure they're learning as much as they can about BAE? I know you guys just did the Connection event. Is that something you guys are like thinking about doing more going forward? I know you guys go to career fairs, do company presentations, so on and so forth. So just some other maybe touch points to, get as much knowledge about BAE as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we did just have our Maritime Connections event, and that is where we invited all of the maritime academies to hear from a panel of directors at each of our shipyard locations, and they got a little bit more insight into what life at our shipyard was like. That was a really great opportunity. It was the first time we've done it, but I'll tell you that it was very successful, and it's something that we're looking to implement moving forward potentially each year. In addition to our Connections event, like you said, we do have a lot of career fairs, and the past few years have been exceptions to the rule, of course, with the pandemic going on, and we've been able to supplement that with remote career fairs and remote info sessions. We would love to get back on site again and do those in-person career fairs or just networking events, a lunch hour, anything like that is something that we really strive to do to build our partnership with these schools and your students. So if they ever see anything like that on their career site, we'll of course keep you all in the loop on when we're coming, but I would highly recommend they go, even if they're not available for the certain semester that it is. If they're interested in a job with us in the future, whether it be 2 years when they graduate or next summer, go talk to us, make those connections, connect on LinkedIn, and that way you have a foot in the door when you are interested in applying.
And then the last question I have, and Casey, we can start with you. Just overall, like once someone's either an intern or a new grad and they're getting into, they're hired by BAE, what are you guys doing to just help them develop the skills and stuff so that they can succeed on the job?
So when someone's a new hire, whether they're a new hire intern or a new grad, they've of course have their hiring manager to lean on, but we also ask that those managers provide a mentor, be it short-term or it becomes a long-term mentor. It's really just a buddy colleague that you can lean on your first few weeks to first few months and help remind you where some resources are, be that phone a friend if you need some help with something. So it really starts your career with BAE on a great foot. But we also have an Ilearn library, which is an online course of a ton of different self-learning development courses. So some of them are 30 minutes, some of them are an hour, some of them are free, some of them cost money, and you wouldn't be paying for that. Your team would pay for that as well. But you can go in and see what you're interested in, just like diving deeper into. And I really like that aspect of it. And then finally, we also have employee resource groups. So these are focused around different audiences or targeted audiences, and you don't have to be a member of that audience to be a participant in the group, but they share different facts about what's going on with that audience, key events they're doing. It's a great way to stay involved and get resources on how to be an ally or what's going on in the community. So it's another way to meet different people that are not in your function or in your site, learn about what's going on within our company or in the community around us, just have more resources available to you.
To add to that too, from the intern front, we typically have different professional development sessions, networking opportunities across the business. We recently had an early career panel where students can hear from previous interns who are now full-time hires. They can hear from leadership development participants. There's a lot of ways we encourage both personal and professional development, in addition to, like Casey mentioned, giving them their more formal mentor, but also encouraging them to reach out and find informal mentors across the business as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, ladies, that's all the questions that I have. Any closing things to pass on, or are you tapped out on information as well?
Maddie mentioned this a couple times, but I think the best way to stay connected with us is to follow BAE Systems on the different social media platforms. It's a great way to see what cool projects we're working on, get industry updates, and just generally be in the know. But I think I speak for both of us. You can also connect with either one of us on LinkedIn. And if you ever see something, position you're interested at BAE Systems, reach out to us, let us know, and we can help you out. We're happy to do so.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to provide more information and help answer any questions that come up.
Awesome. Well, Casey and Madeline, thank you so much for, again, taking some time out of your day. And I think it's going to be pretty informative for students from a little different perspective than what they're used to hearing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. This was really great. We're excited to have more of your students here with us.
Absolutely. Appreciate you setting this up.